Hello everybody, welcome back to Law Hero. My name is Jen. I make videos about the law. I've been doing this for so long, but it is 2024. It is officially 10 years since I sat the FE1, and today we're going to talk about all the reasons why people fail the FE1. I make these videos all the time, but I have noticed things are getting slightly worse in recent years. And rather than put this advice into the 8 videos that I'm going to make for every subject, I thought I would amalgamate it all into one video now. Okay, so the first reason for sure people fail the FE1 is because there is 8 exams. So obviously the reason there's 8 exams is because the Law Society is trying to test you across the most fundamental areas of law. Obviously the mitigant or the response for a candidate to reduce this burden would be to break it up. And my advice to all of you, if you're an undergrad and you're listening to me right now, take the exam as you sit the subject in university. So if you're doing tort law in first year, just cut back on some drinking, just cut back on some partying, cut back on, some downtime and pass that exam as quick as you can. It'll make things so much easier when you graduate, and I wish I had that option back then. I think it would have focused me more and made university a bit more useful. The other big challenge is time management in the exam. Most people find it difficult to answer the question in the designated amount of time that you're given. The next big reason is the increased difficulty. So a common trap that FE1 candidates fall into is that they apply the same logic to the FE1 as they did their undergraduate exam, but what they don't realise is that they're being scored quite differently and they're being marked quite differently. So let me explain. In an undergraduate exam, you're expected to have a basic theoretical knowledge with some level of critical analysis thrown in, but you're not expected to have much because obviously it's your first time studying law, and you're gonna get like 70% quite easy, I would say, in university, whereas to get 70% in a Law Society exam is a complete different kettle of fish, because it's a professional exam and you're being marked on a professional standard, which is, were a client to come to you, is your advice negligent or not? As in, is your advice accurate enough that they know what the odds are of them succeeding in their case? If it is inaccurate, then you fail the question. And that's it. It's the level of accuracy that they're looking for. It's kind of akin to doing a maths exam almost. You're not, well, no, that's a bad example. Probably like, I don't know, like a scientific experiment, because you're not rewarded for the effort at all. You're only rewarded for the accuracy. So if you put down in the FE1, if you put down something irrelevant or something that doesn't assist in your argument, you're actually negatively marked. Okay, the next big one is the syllabus breadth. And this is my favorite one because it's the one that I observed so much debate. If you go to boards.ie, it's like a cesspit of people arguing back and forth, like what topics are going to come up, what notes are you using, so-and-so's notes aren't up to date. Like, people focus so much on the learning material because that's all they know, and there's like this desperate scramble from people to collect information and like tear pages out of books and hoard all these notes. But like, quite frankly, the information is available online. Like, for example, you can get my ebooks online, and the information is freely available, but people still fail. And the reason is, a lot of the time they have too much information. So for example, at the moment I'm studying for the CIPI exam, which is like GDPR and privacy. There is literally millions of resources online for GDPR and data protection. But a clever thing to do is to reduce those resources down to the very, very minimum. And that's what I do in my ebook, and that's what I've done in my CIPI ebook. Having a lot of information is not valuable. Having the right information is what's valuable. And having the right information on the day that relates to the question is exactly what you've been tasked to do in the FE1. It's quite counterintuitive because people, especially in the Irish tradition, and I guess in the American tradition, the English tradition as well, people's first tendency is to hoard information and then distill it down, and that is actually such a waste of time because that has already been done by people like me who create those ebooks. The best thing you can do and an effective use of your time is get information that is already distilled down and then spend the majority of your time understanding the basic principles so that you can pivot when you're asked a question that isn't like other questions you've been asked before, because the examiners are getting wary of people regurgitating answers, and it's just not going to last, because as a lawyer you can't regurgitate answers. Every time a client comes to you, it's going to be a different question. The examiners are becoming wary of this, and to be a solicitor is somebody who has an enormous high specific degree of knowledge about the law, and from an ethical perspective you're in a situation of trust. You're fiduciary to your client, you're a trusted advisor, so why on earth would they let everybody in? It makes no sense. If it was easy, everybody would do it. So please take it seriously, understand that you cannot just throw down some random answer and hope for the best. Debating online around notes, debating online about what's going to come up, that is such a waste of your time. Again, I refer to boards.ie as a cesspit. Do you notice there's no boards.ie for solicitors? You know why? Because we don't need it. You really need to invest a significant amount of time in understanding the basic principles. I remember I was having this discussion with one of my friends when I was doing my master's. We were talking about like how basic undergraduate studies are, and that people who fail master's exams, whether it be in like financial regulation, IPIT, data protection, kind of like the high-end stuff, it's because they haven't mastered the basics. They don't understand the basics of law, so then they can't go and do the niche stuff, which you can get a much higher income from. You can't do it because you haven't understood the basics. Okay, number 5 is obviously that there's a higher pass mark. So in the FE1, the pass mark is 50%. Most people are used to 40%, and that does create a barrier to passing, obviously just because it's a numbers game. The next one is examiner expectations. So even though the examiners on the FE1 are largely academics, they have been tasked with marking the paper as if you were a solicitor. So they're not stupid. They're being paid by the Law Society of Ireland, who is it's not the regulatory authority, it's the licensing body for solicitors. So if you're being paid by a licensing body, you're going to examine up to the standards that a license would be handed out, just like in any other country. So please be aware of that. Don't think it's an academic exam just because it's being corrected by academics. Obviously the exception to that is Dr. Tom Courtney. He has a doctorate, yeah, but he's a practitioner, so he doesn't have any academic leanings. Okay, he wrote the Companies Act and he has a doctorate, but he's, from my knowledge of him, he's a practitioner. And the clue is in the name: practice, practical. Are you being practical? Practical and pragmatic is the key words for this exam, not academic. Get away from all of that. And the final one, which we all have to recognize, happens in the FE1, and it happened to me myself. Almost ended up in a really bad state. If you want to see what happened to me during my FE1, look at my video called FE1 Struggle. But anyway, the problem is that the FE1 usually takes place in a time that is sandwiched between your undergraduate and getting a job. And in between that, people work part-time, they work for law firms, they're looking after kids, whatever it may be, they are juggling the FE1 with something else, because if you're not, well, you're very lucky. If you're able to study for the FE1 and live at home and like have your mommy bring you in cheese sandwiches, which is what I know somebody else had, and I really wished I had that, you're going to be fine. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the people who are juggling a lot. Just know that you're not alone. Like, that's why my Law Hero IRL Instagram pages there. Like, life is very difficult. I know that. I've been through it, but I know for some people it's even more difficult. And I know that that's part of the reason why people fail the exam. But all I can say to you is persevere and do your best. Usually the people who have faced the most adversity come out top. They just do, because they learn how to deal with many different conflicting interests, and that's what life is. It's managing all those conflicting interests. Anyway, I'm not going to talk anymore. That's my video. I will be dropping every single FE1 subject over the next few days and weeks as I do the ebooks. I've just been updating them. But this year what I'm actually going to do is look at how to answer the questions and how I would answer them if I was to do the FE1 again, and hopefully score high, which is the dream, my reoccurring dream, that I beat my old score. That's psycho, but that's who I am. Okay, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.